Flow Wrestling has Ohio State projected to beat Penn State at the NCAA tournament in the team standings. Surely that's a mistake. Oh, it's not. I guess we're doubting Cael Sanderson and the Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State Wrestling and Penn State Football. So, thank you for joining me here as we are going to talk about Penn State versus Wyoming. There are some must-see matches, especially at the upper weights, for this dual meet that's going to go down Saturday, December 13th in Wyoming. There might be a wrestle-off between Josh Barr and Connor Mirasola. At least Cael Sanderson seems like he's entertaining the idea of it. Interesting. And Masanosuke Ono, unfortunate news. Doesn't sound too serious, but unfortunate health news leading up to an international tournament that he was supposed to participate in. We'll get to the latest there. We got to start with the controversy as I can't believe what I'm reading. Somebody's doubting Penn State Wrestling again. Manufacturing a narrative aside, this does bring up a conversational point because right now, and there you look across other projection sites. So I like to refer to Intermat a lot, but Flow Wrestling has Ohio State scoring 104 points and Penn State scoring 103, and therefore would lose the NCAA. Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't frame it that way. I guess because it's Penn State just wins all the time, that they continue to win at the NCAA tournament, that second place would be a loss. You know, that's just right. But Ohio State actually getting the win at the NCAA tournament. What? Why would that happen? So I do need to point out that it is strictly based on the hypothetical of what is presently happening. So Flo has clarified that Ohio State at this point in time would defeat this Penn State team. And I think that's a kind of a controversial conversation in its own right. Because this is basically alluding to the fact that Connor Mirasola at 197 wouldn't have that same kind of run at the NCAA tournament that Josh Barr would. And we're going to talk about that in segment 2. It's saying that Marcus Blaze and PJ Duke aren't as in the mix as they would be, or as they should be considered at 133 and 157. So these rankings, these results are supposed to be more objective. They don't calculate bonus points in this instance. Dual meet results aren't factored in. It's the tournament points that are calculated based on where the individuals are ranked. So if you're going off of present rankings, and even Intermat, for example, Intermat only has Penn State projected at this point to beat Ohio State by 3 points. I've talked about Ohio State being a legitimate team, saying that they are the number 2 team in the country, and got some pushback on it, which is understandable, right? Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Hey, Nebraska did really well last season, right? You can't declare Ohio State the number 2 team in the country definitively just because they did well at the national team duels. I think you can, because the proof is there. So I'm not trying to argue and discredit against the fact that Ohio State is legitimate. And I can't wait to see Luke Lillidahl against Nick Bouzakis, for example, or Marcus Blaze versus Ben Davino. Okay. If you have, now this is where see Jesse Mendez and Cael Nasdeo, it's a much different match. If you go Mendez versus Nagao, I still think Mendez wins, but that's a decision. Maybe it's a major decision if Nagao's not 100% versus this potentially being a guaranteed major decision or a tech fall against, or maybe even a pin against Cael Nasdeo at 141. But Shane Van Ness, I think, is much better than Ethan Styles, even though Ethan Styles is a top 10 wrestler. So this is more about comparing and contrasting Penn State to Ohio State. PJ Duke right now is just within the top 10. And you have Brandon Cannon, who we're more or less going off a precedent here because of the run he had at the Big Ten tournament a season ago, where he finished at NCAAs. So he's already within the top 5. And again, it's kind of going off of the nuances of those projections there, because I would expect PJ Duke to beat a Brandon Cannon. I would expect Marcus Blaze to defeat Ben Davino, even though I think that would be, that's the matchup. Ben Davino, because that's the future of 133 right there. Davino versus Blaze. That's the matchup of the dual meet right there. That's the headliner. But Levi Haynes against Carson Harchla. That's another decisive victory where I'm picking Levi Haynes 99 times out of 100 in that. Okay, so maybe there's the one-off chance, right? Rocco Welsh going up against, see, some people have alluded to the fact that Dylan Fishback would give Rocco Welsh a run for his money. Okay, well, Dylan Fishback is top 10, but I would still side with Welsh in that instance. So these are when you look at it head to head and everything, this is based on how they would do at NCAA turn in terms of where they would move along through the brackets. It's simply a projection, the rankings, and then the algorithm, put it all together. Okay, at 197, again, they're not putting Josh Barr as the number 1 ranked wrestler because he hasn't wrestled at this point, whereas Connor Mirasola is number 8. So Barr isn't getting the bonus points for the championship, the bonus points for how much he would score along the way, but it's also kind of discrediting that Mirasola, okay, you say he's a fringe top 10 wrestler right now, and we know that he could easily be in the top 4 when all's said and done. But they're going off of, again, simply what is tangible at this point in time, what they've seen, the scoring, how they would rank them. So as much fun as it would be to say that, oh, Flow Wrestling is just disrespecting Penn State and how dare they, it's not that, but they're going off of there are some subtle instances where I question again, okay, PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, right? Those Connor Mirasola. You can question some of the rankings a little bit. But then if you're following the formula, okay, you get the result that you get the result of. Aaron Nagao is not factored in at 141 because Cael Nasdale would very much struggle, I think, at the NCAA tournament. That's just the fact of the matter right now. And then at 197, we know that Josh Barr is the number 1 wrestler, and that would boost Penn State. That would vault them. So as these things start to self-correct a little bit, as PJ Duke starts to move up in the rankings, Marcus Blaze moves up in the rankings, Connor Mirasola, or when Josh Barr returns again. We're going to debate that in segment 2, right? Why is that being floated about a wrestle-off? But Mirasola, when he moves up in the rankings as well, because you know Penn State has the anchors with Levi Haynes and Mitchell Messenbrink. I know Cole Mirasola, would he be able to make the podium, right? So that's how Flow is scoring this, and then other outlets as well. And why it's so close. It's close because this is not Penn State's NCAA tournament lineup. And Ohio State is actually a lot better than maybe some Penn State fans, some are willing to give them credit for. That is a really good Ohio State team. I am extremely eager to see that one go down when it does. It is Penn State's best dual meet on the schedule. And I've been saying that about Ohio State for a while now. If you followed along with this show, I don't want to say I'm a fan, right? But I have been a distant admirer of what Tom Ryan has done with this team. And I've just been waiting for it. When's this team going to peak? When's this team going to peak? Oh, they peaked. This is an extremely talented team. They plug and played the right transfer portal moves. You're seeing Ben Davino get his footing right out of the gate. You're at the lightweight. You're seeing Nick Bazakis cut down from 133 to 125 and settling in perfectly. It's those kinds of moves that have really paid dividends for Ohio State. But again, I look at some of those. I look at some of those other matchups, and I still think to myself, Penn State. They even with this present team, they still should be considered the favorite. The projections are wrong here because PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, and Connor Mirasola, if you did roll out this lineup, would still be the number 1 team in the country at the NCAA tournament. So, of course, to be determined as we all get to watch it and enjoy it unfold. We got to talk about Masanosuke Ono because he has a little bit of a health issue. What does it mean for Penn State and potential availability? And then I've already referred to it, Josh Barr and Connor Mirasola. Would they actually wrestle off, and could Connor take that starting spot away from Josh Barr? Well, we're going to discuss it next year on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You can give this gift to anybody, grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anybody who loves photos, which is just about everybody, right? You have endless uploads of pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app, and you can add personalized messages right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open. And packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. That's a huge win, especially when you're busy during the holidays. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com. auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays and support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Nittany Lions with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. All you got to do is go to lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com. That's lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com, or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Okay, what's going on with Masanosuke Ono, and could Penn State really have a wrestle-off at 197 after Josh Barr was just an NCAA finalist, a runner-up, but Connor Mirasola continues to roll along? So that's what we're going to hit on here, and then get to Penn State and Wyoming. So Masanosuke Ono, this is a little bit of breaking news as this was released on Friday. It was reported that Ono is actually dealing with a kidney injury. He has a kidney injury, and he's going to withdraw from the Japan Emperor's Cup. According to reports, it is not serious, and he expects to return within about a month. And Ono does intend to compete at some form of college open tournament. So, okay, this is kind of the best case scenario here. I do feel bad for Ono because he was training, he was working toward this event. We asked Cael Sanderson at a media scrum, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, hey, when could we see Masanosuke Ono? And he said, oh, probably not for a little bit. He is training. He's trying to work for conditioning to go to a tournament back in Japan. And this was it. So that's what's kind of disheartening here for Ono, is you just kind of feel for him. He comes over to Penn State. He hasn't been able to wrestle in. We haven't been able to see where he is with his folk style development. We didn't get to see him in any of these open tournaments that he was registered for. He is truly, it seems that it's just trending where he's not going to wrestle for Penn State this season, and he's going to go to an open tournament at some point in time. Again, the red shirt regulations are difficult because he's not a true freshman. So he doesn't get the same 5 matches to go out and wrestle for Penn State. So he's kind of on an emergency basis here with the Penn State lineup. I don't intend to see him for the Penn State lineup this season, so you probably shouldn't either unless there's truly a lineup emergency, right? But at this point in time, again, when Ono's coming over to train, the point of this was to train at Penn State, to get the knowledge from Cael Sanderson and company, to be able to experience the American culture, the American lifestyle. And you're working and you're trying to get ready for this tournament back in your home country, and you have a kidney issue. So that's where it's just disappointing to see, because I wanted to follow along with that competition, and he's out because of unfortunate circumstances there. So this, the Emperor's Cup was supposed to occur about a week from now, December 18th through the 21st. It's where the Japanese world team, it begins the selection process. So this is more than just, oh, it's just a friendly exhibition competition back in Japan. No, this means something. This is basically a prerequisite to get on the world team for his country. And Ono, him wrestling at 57 kilos, that's where he's trying to represent Japan, is at 57 kilos. He's listed on Penn State's roster at 133. And Ono has said that in interviews before, that I can wrestle anywhere. I could wrestle at 125, 133, 141. He's that versatile. But right now he's trying to make these international lineups at 57 kilos. And it's been speculated. Okay. It was speculated on social media that because he wrestled and he won a world championship at 61 kilos. So is the kidney injury, the reported kidney issue, does this have to do with weight management problems? Does this have to do with the stress of cutting weight? I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to be one, but it's just something, again, I want to throw this into the conversation because other people have pointed it out, and I think it is worth mentioning in this instance. So it does make me wonder if Ono if he wants to change his approach, move away from 57 kilos and then go back to 61, which again, he wins a world title, a senior level world title in 2024 at just 20 years old at 61 kilos. Why he's making the cut to 57, I'm unsure of here, because if he's the winner at 61, why would you make the cut to go down? You're listed at 133 on the Penn State roster. So it just does raise some questions overall, and important to kind of point this out in the scheme of things for this conversation. Okay, on to 197, because Josh Barr, I mean, it was asked, and I thought it was crazy to ask it, because why would Connor Mirasola just take that spot away from Josh Barr? But nothing is official until it's official here. But Cael Sanderson basically alludes to the fact that there could be a wrestle-off, that Connor has proved himself to this point because of the way that he's dominated the competition. Again, he defeated a ranked wrestler in DJ Parker of Oklahoma. He's got a huge test, right? This is a measuring stick this weekend against Wyoming, where he's going to face a top 5 wrestler in Joey Novak. But Connor Mirasola isn't just in the lineup to fill a gap because Josh Barr is out. He's not on cleanup duty. He is, at least it's trending this way, that we could see an open competition here. And you just got to default and say, it's Penn State. You know, this is why you go to Penn State, where no spot is guaranteed, no spot is safe. The competition is at the highest level possible, which is why Penn State is what it is. But man, Josh Barr, here's how I would approach this personally, and this isn't from a wrestling analysis, it's just kind of a lineup management situation. Connor Mirasola is extremely talented, and Cael Sanderson, I believe him when he says, because I don't think he would say this without reason, he says that Mirasola has all the talent and all the potential in the world, just like Josh Barr. And I've had other conversations with people like that as well, that, oh, Connor isn't just some other guy within the mat room, that he's an All-American, but he's not to Josh Barr's level. So that's kind of where we're at. So it's interesting that if Cael is kind of loosely entertaining the idea that, hey, maybe we do need to have a wrestle-off because Connor has proven himself to this point, but we also know that he has untapped potential and could be the best 197-pounder in the country. Again, how I would manage it, if you do have the two best 197-pounders in the country between Josh Barr and Connor Mirasola, I don't think it does anyone justice to rush Josh Barr back. So if he's not 100%, you don't throw him out there in the lineup just to get him situated, because then maybe a healthy Connor Mirasola does defeat a less than 100% Josh Barr. And then does that really solve the lineup dilemma? Does that really prove who's the better 197-pounder? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So Barr, remember, he is dealing with a rib injury that he suffered in October at the U23 World Championships. It's been framed that he's getting closer. He's trending in the right direction. He's starting to get involved in practices a lot more. But Mirasola at this point, 6-0, 3 tech falls, a pin, a major decision to this point. He's now ranked within the top 10 at 197. Mirasola is absolutely a and I know it's going off of the results at this point in time, but you can look at it from the eye test and say that Mirasola is a top 5 wrestler and could be someone. Say you wrestle Josh Barr and Mirasola just for the sake of it, for the sake of the conversation. This happens every year. Oh, Penn State's B team would do XYZ at the NCAA tournament. A lot of letters in that sequence there, huh? Barr, he would be the number 1 ranked wrestler. I have reason to believe that Connor would be right there in the top 4 and would either meet him in the semifinals or be on the other side of the bracket. That is what I've said. I've been consistent with that about Connor the entire time. So is Jeff Byers on a lot of these shows when we've talked about it and debated it. How good is the 197-pound weight class there for Penn State? And you very well could, when Connor starts to truly reach his peak, which will happen. We only saw Josh Barr get better. Connor's going through the same trajectory. So they could be 1 and 2 in state college. And that's crazy to think that Penn State would have the 2 best 197 pounders and only one of them can compete in NCAA. So the true championship very well may be that wrestle-off if and when it does happen once Barr is 100%. But you don't have to rush him back. You don't have to rush him back, but it makes this conversation so much more intriguing. All right. We got to get to Penn State versus Wyoming because Connor has another opportunity to prove himself. So does his twin brother, Cole. Rocco Welsh is going to be tested this weekend. As Penn State, yes, they should dominate once again, but those upper weight bouts are going to be must-see action. That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And you can bet on the NFL. You can also bet on college football. Lines are available for Penn State versus Clemson in this upcoming bowl game. We have a little bit of line movement. Penn State is now a 4.5-point underdog. They were 3.5-point underdogs. Now they're 4.5-point underdogs, plus 155 on the money line. If you're thinking Penn State for the upset, Clemson minus 188. The total is still set at 48.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. And if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. That's FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. Final segment of this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions as Penn State takes on Wyoming. So Wyoming visited last year. Now Penn State's returning the favor. This is another instance where Penn State very well could shut out their opponent, but there are some must-watch matches, especially at the upper weights. Well, frankly, only the upper weights, but 184, 197, and 285 are going to potentially give us some NCAA tournament caliber matchups there. So Rocco Welsh, Connor Mirasola, and Cole Mirasola certainly have their work cut out for them this weekend against no lower than top 12, especially at 197. Joey Novak is still at Wyoming. Some wrestling junkies might remember him. So the lineups that are projected for this Saturday, December 13th, Luke Lillidahl at 125, Marcus Blaze at 133, Aaron Nagao, if he potentially returns, it's most likely going to be Cael Nasdeo. At 149, Shane Van Ness. 157, we could see maybe Joe Seeley because that's still being floated as far as, how many matches is PJ Duke going to wrestle initially, but expect PJ Duke, but there is a possibility of Joe Seeley. Mitchell Messenbrink is always at 165, Levi Haynes at 174, Welsh Mirasola at 84.97 and heavyweight. Then for Wyoming, at 125, Sefton Douglas. At 133, Luke Willichel, who's number 22 in the country. 141, John Aldine. 149, Gabe Willichel, who is 30th. 157, Jared Hill, number 23 in the nation. Okay, so a kind of a solid test for PJ Duke, but PJ is just that much better, as we saw this past weekend at Lehigh. 165, Sloan Swan. 174, Riley Davis, who does rank number 28 overall. And then at 184, Eddie Knightenbach against Rocco Welsh at that. He's ranked 12th. Joey Novak is top 5. He's the number 4 wrestler in the country right now at 197. And a top 10 wrestler in his own right, Christian Carroll at heavyweight. The headline matchup is going to be Connor Mirasola and Joey Novak, as Mirasola has now vaulted himself into the top 10. Okay, we just had the previous discussion where we talked about Barr potentially wrestling off against Connor Mirasola to either get back his spot or Mirasola to retain it, which would be absolutely insane that an NCAA runner-up could potentially lose his spot in the 197 at the 197 spot. But Mirasola, this is that true barometer. This is truly that test for him, because if he is elite, if he is going to be able to challenge Josh Barr, we get an idea here. Okay, Mirasola has proven to be, a lot better than his other competition. I mean, he makes a statement against DJ Parker right out of the gate of Oklahoma, and that's a quality wrestler that very well could be an All-American at the end of the day. But Joey Novak, we're talking about a finals contender now. Not necessarily a favorite, but a finals, a fringe contender that easily, I mean, right now in top 4, you would project him to be make an appearance in the semifinals, right? We didn't get to see Joey Novak wrestle last year because of injury when Wyoming and Penn State met. I am eager to see Joey Novak wrestle here. A phenomenal matchup where Mirasola can prove himself, because if Penn State truly does have the 2 best 197 pounders in the country, this is how you go out and prove it here. And it's also on the road. That's a Wyoming environment. I imagine it's going to be amped up for this one. So Mirasola on the road as a redshirt freshman, trying to prove himself to say, okay, I'm not just the backup here. I can be the starter. Don't dismiss me. If there is going to be a wrestle-off with my teammate in Josh Barr, Joey Novak is that perfect measure to figure that one out. Okay, at heavyweight. So speaking of one Mirasola, we have Cole Mirasola, right? Twin brother. As Christian Carroll is a top 10 ranked wrestler, this is another case where Cole Mirasola, I'm glad that he's being tested right out of the gate. It's perfect to have these kinds of matchups early on so that you're not necessarily scrambling later on in the season to try to figure out, okay, what can we correct? What can we change? What's our game plan when we face tougher wrestlers here? Because Cole, we've talked about it all off season, now into the season, that he's a talented wrestler. He's a cerebral wrestler, but he has physical disadvantages if he's going to face a true heavyweight. So Cole needs to continue to find ways to manufacture points and the biggest problem this past weekend against his counterpart at Lehigh was the fact that he just wasn't finishing his shots. He wasn't able to turn those into points. So I commend Cole for setting up his moves, for getting to a point where he is able to score, but he's got to be able to finish them. So someone that is bigger and taller, that's going to be tough against. So I'm eager to see how Cole actually bridges that gap, where he's able to, because he's putting himself in great position to succeed. He's literally putting himself in position to score and to secure those points, but he's got to be able to finish the move. Simply put, he's got to be able to finish the move and then not get into situations where a heavyweight's just able to, again, use top defense, just ride him for the remainder of the match, secure that riding time point. That's basically the kryptonite for Cole Mirasola. If you can get that one takedown and just go into your top defense, I need to see Cole find a way to, again, like I said, manufacture points, push the pace, get the guy to back up. These refs are quick to call stalling points. So see if you can find a way to adjust the match and take it over here. Okay. Rocco Welsh and Eddie Knightenbach. This is one that, could we see this at the NCAA tournament? We could see any of these at the NCAA tournament, right? But Rocco Welsh coming off of a recent match against Lehigh where he did struggle, where he did need a last-minute takedown. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into that personally, and I don't think you should either. Welsh, you can just have an off day. Anybody can have an off day. And that's what I chalk it up to. And that's certainly what Cael Sanderson said as well. When we talked to him, asked him about it, I said, hey, Welsh he didn't tech fall him. He didn't get any bonus points here. What was going on? And he's like, well, he still won and he got a takedown when he needed it. It's not like this was 1-0 or 2-1. Rocco Welsh got into that scramble and still came out on top. So sometimes you just need to find that finisher. And Welsh did that. But against Eddie Knightenbach, if you don't bring your best, you are going to pay for it. So Knightenbach, another instance where you don't get away with mistakes. There are no freebies. Welsh is going to have to bring his A game. And again, on the road, this is when Knightenbach, when you're the underdog and you have everything kind of going against you, so to speak, you can just kind of go out there and wrestle freely. I wonder if there's any of that with Rocco. I doubt it. But you can't help but think, okay, when you are the overwhelming favorite, there is that, are you going to wrestle passively? Are you not going to wrestle as freely and openly as your opponent will because of that standard? But I fully expect Rocco Welsh to bounce back. It's going to be an entertaining matchup because Knightenbach was an Ohio State champion out of high school in his own right, extremely talented wrestler. And hopefully this is a preview for the NCAA tournament down the road there. But like I said, this is at every weight class up until you get to the heavier weights, the upper weights. Lilidol should get bonus points. Blaze should get bonus points. 141 will be another test for Cael Nasdeo against John Aldine. Or again, do we see Aaron Nagao? I doubt it though, based on the way that Cael had framed it most recently with these press conferences. Shane Van Ness, bonus points. PJ Duke or Joe Seeley, bonus points. Mitchell Messenbrink, bonus points. Levi Haynes, bonus points. Another dominant win for Penn State where worst case scenario, I'm thinking 8-2. Penn State wins 8 matches. Wyoming gets 2 at 197 in heavyweight. Best case scenario, 10-0 sweep. This one goes down Saturday, December 13th. It's probably when you're listening to this podcast at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Broadcast will be on Flow. The audio, Jeff Byers will always have that covered. And that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts because we do this daily here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Coverage around all your favorite Penn State sports teams right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.